Let's start, however, with the African Union's Extraordinary Summit's Executive Council meeting. It has started in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, at the level of foreign ministers from right across Africa. Now, the Council has the mandate of drafting agendas for the heads of state to decide upon on Saturday. The theme of this emergency summit is Africa's relationship with the International Criminal Court. At the opening ceremony, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, said all member states will discuss Kenya's concerns as well as the rest of Africa.
The Union has a strong policy position that pursuant to justice should go hand in hand with the promotion of peace, security, stability, and prosperity for our countries and realize the legitimate aspirations of our people for dignity, national reconciliation, especially in conflict situations.
During this session, we should seriously consider how we should ensure that our collective voice is heard to receive a fair treatment to our concerns. We should not allow the ICC to continue to treat Africa and Africans in a condescending manner. That's the reason why we're gathered here today, and I'm confident that our deliberations will help us to come up with appropriate recommendations for the consideration and adoption of our heads of state and government.
In the meantime, the Kenyan head of state, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, is attempting to stop his upcoming trial at the International Criminal Court. In a formal request filed with the court on Thursday, Kenyatta's lawyers called for an end to the case. They argue that they have evidence of wide-ranging abuses, including witness intimidation. The Kenyan president is due to go on trial on the 12th of November. He faces charges of crimes against humanity for allegedly orchestrating post-election violence in 2007 and 2008. That unrest left over 1,000 people dead and displaced more than 500,000 more from their homes. Now, we've told you about the policy bit, but what do ordinary citizens think? A proposal for African countries to pull out and withdraw from the International Criminal Court seems to be gaining quite a bit of currency. Some Africans feel that the Hague-based tribunal is biased against the continent, which has the bulk of cases there, yet there are other incidents of crimes against humanity being perpetrated elsewhere in the world. Now, the general feeling among some Africans is that the continent has to come up with its own court to try African cases.
Now we have Kenya, the president of Kenya, the vice, they are being tried at The Hague. You have al-Bashir, who refused to go there, but had been indicted. And you have quite a number of these African leaders who have been called to the ICC. You don't know, as African, that is it because African leaders have ideologies that are different from the West? Maybe that's the problem. That's why they are being called to the Hague to be tried there.
I think that the ICC stands for a good cause, and that's to bring justice to all people, regardless of race, regardless of where you come from. I don't think Africa should pull out of the ICC. I think that lately the attention has been on African leaders lately. But that's not to say that the ICC is targeting Africans or that there's some kind of prejudice on African leaders or African people, but that we need to understand that some of the crimes that have been committed in many of our countries, many of our African countries, were not justifiable.
It's a good move if all African countries pull out of the ICC, because we've never seen any European leader or any leaders from the Western countries being tried at the ICC. It's all African leaders, and I think it's high time we should pull out and stand up against these people who are always trying to oppress us.
Let's get you some latest updates, of course, from the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa, where that meeting, of course, of foreign ministers from right across Africa is in progress. CCTV's Gurum Chala joins us now live on the phone. Gurum, as we've mentioned a little earlier, foreign ministers from across Africa are drafting the agenda of that meeting. Do we have any more information about what is expected before Saturday's meeting of heads of state and government?
Yeah, Ram, as you've said, the Executive Council has a mandate of drafting the agenda for the heads of state to deliberate on their tomorrow's summit. the extraordinary summit called by actually acted by the Kenyan government, supported by Uganda. What we are expecting today are two things apart from that one, the end result that is. Number one, as everybody was talking around the continent and even here in the African Union Hall, the possible pullout might be suggested for the heads of state to consider tomorrow. That will be a decision which is going to be groundbreaking and something that has never been done by the African Union at this capacity. But the second one and most important one, and many experts here and participants are guessing, is to agree on some kind of platform. You know, many ministers here, foreign ministers, are suggesting that we should actually consider negotiating with the International Criminal Court, as it is not a court that can replace a judiciary system of a country. It should act accordingly. All the fouls and the impartiality, as according to them, should stop now, and we should have some kind of arrangement to correct the mistakes that have been done so far. So we're expecting an agreement to be reached at the end of the day. That is not possibly a pullout from the ICC, or signatories who might not say we should end our Rome Statute membership. So this is the expectation so far, but we'll see at the end of the day what the ministers will be drafting for the heads of states to deliver it tomorrow, Rama.
Indeed. We've also seen the director of the African Union's Executive Council putting out some very strong words regarding the ICC. What's the reaction been like to those comments at the AU meeting?
It's interesting, Rama, to hear Dr. Tedros Adhanom, who is also the foreign minister of Ethiopia and the chair of the Executive Council, hear him to say that the ICC has been so much biased. The ICC has been treating Africa in a wrong way in every direction. And he was also, just to remind you what he's been saying, he was also saying the Kenyan administration cannot be going back and forth to The Hague when problems are arising, like, for example, the Westgate Mall attack. When things are happening like that in the country, terrorist activities are happening. And when Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, and William Ruto, the deputy, have their own assignments and mandates by the Constitution of Kenya, then they should execute that. The ICC is requiring them to come back and forth to The Hague, which is totally unacceptable by the African Union member states. That's what he said, and many more strong words from him, actually. So the reaction here is generally, very much pro-Tedros' speech. Everybody is saying the same word at the moment, that ICC indeed was not there to the continent and the people of the continent. It does not necessarily mean that they might be changed in the course of the discussion here at the African Union Extraordinary Summit, Rama. But at the moment, everything seems to be, there seems to be a mutual understanding as to what Africa really wants from the International Criminal Court and its relationship with that organization. But what is that exact thing is going to be, we shall see it by the end of the day, Rama.
Indeed. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that update. That's CCTV's Girum Chala from the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, with foreign ministers from across Africa are meeting, of course, to draft a resolution that will then be presented to heads of state. Whether or not they will actually pull out or call for a general pullout of African countries from the Rome Statute, the law that establishes the International Criminal Court, is something we will have, of course, to know later on tomorrow. Let's move on to Somalia. The first public meeting with the country's media law was held earlier this week on Wednesday in the capital, Mogadishu. This comes in the wake of criticism by local media that the draft law, as currently written, curbs press freedom. The United Nations Human Rights Office had also expressed concern at the demand for journalists to reveal their sources, which it says could prevent them from publishing information deemed by the state as anti-Islamic or to be against Somali traditions. Somalia is one of the most dangerous countries in Africa in which to be a journalist. Last year, 18 journalists were killed. 6 more have died so far this year.
Media is a very strong and vibrant sector within the Somali society, and to actually establish a strong relationship between the media and the governments, just to ensure that the information that's being disseminated into the society is correct, but at the same time that we don't trample upon the rights of the journalists. It's a very, very important media law, and it's a very important debate to have.
So the current draft is the product of serious consultation and serious feedback and constructive criticism from various groups, which we have taken into account, and we believe the current draft meets the concerns of the Somali people as well as the international partners.
About 10 minutes into the hour, let's take our first break. Here's what's coming up next.
Nobody will be arrested just based on rumor or smear campaign. But I will also not protect anybody.
Malawi's President Joyce Banda talking tough on corruption, and she has sent her entire cabinet packing. We'll have the latest details when we come back. Welcome back. Malawi's President Joyce Banda dissolved her entire cabinet on Thursday in direct response to a multi-million-dollar fraud scandal. Now, police said around 10 junior government officials had been arrested, and they have recovered tens of thousands of dollars in cash in their car boots and in their homes as well. One senior government official said Banda told the cabinet that she had, quote, lost faith in them. The multi-million-dollar Cashgate scandal, as it's locally known in Malawi, forced the government to shut down its payment system last week to investigate more than $4 million that has gone missing. The presidency said Banda, who came to office in April last year, would announce a new cabinet in due course. And speaking on Wednesday, Banda acknowledged the corruption does continue to dog the country, and she said those responsible would feel the full force of the law.
It is obvious that huge amounts of public funds have been lost through corruption and theft within the public service, and regrettably, this was still continuing. I wish to call upon the nation not to panic. We have a very able and professional police service, and so nobody will be arrested just based on rumor or smear campaign. But I will also not protect anybody.
Let's get some more details on the crisis in Malawi. We're now going to be speaking live to the President's press secretary, Mr. Stephen Mshane. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Could you tell us exactly what prompted President Banda's decision to fire her entire cabinet?
Yes, the president has dissolved cabinet. I think this is a repositioning exercise, like all cabinet reshuffles before. The aim is to strengthen the cabinet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously now there's a power vacuum, so when is the new cabinet likely to be put in place?
She hasn't announced when the new cabinet will be announced, but all ministerial matters will revert to the presidency through the controlling officers. There are principal secretaries in each government ministry, and these will take charge of all issues that the ministers were taking care of.
Mm-hmm. International donors, including the United States and the EU, both have issued fairly strong statements against fraud and corruption, and they have threatened to withhold aid to Malawi. Was President Banda's decision a direct reaction to the feedback she was getting from the EU and the US?
I don't think she's reacting to that statement, because she already knows that she needs to, as government, Malawi needs to use donor money well and protect it from corruption and all kinds of fraud. And that is why she has put in place a machinery to ensure that corruption and fraud are busted. So she's not necessarily reacting to the donors, because these The position of donors has been known for a very long time. It's not a recent position.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. That's Mr. Steve Mshane. He is the press secretary to President Joyce Banda of Malawi, joining us live from the capital, Lilongwe, there by phone. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's move on to another set of news from the continent. Let's start in the CAR, where a warlord who had claimed to be in military command of Bangassou in the Central African Republic has been arrested alongside 30 of his men. Colonel Abdallah, as is known, formerly of the Seleka rebel coalition, and his men are accused of spreading terror across the eastern city in that country. They have been transferred to the capital, Bangui, where they will be detained. Separately, at least 60 people were killed in sectarian clashes in the Central African Republic between local militias and former rebels. The new transitional government's failure to stem the violence has prompted the UN Security Council to pass a resolution paving the way for peacekeepers to be sent to the country. Elsewhere in the continent, Morocco's King Mohammed VI has appointed a new Islamist-led government, ending a month-long crisis triggered by the defection of a key coalition partner. The cabinet shake-up sees Saad Eddin El Othmani replaced as Foreign Affairs Minister by Saladin Mezouar, who heads the National Rally of Independence and whose agreement to join the government effectively prevented it from collapsing. 6 women will also be taking up cabinet posts compared with just 1 in the previous administration. Abdallah Benkirane remains as Prime Minister. Benkirane's party has headed the government since triumphing in the 2011 elections, which followed the popular Arab revolts in the region. And finally, a team of South African researchers have discovered the first evidence of a comet slamming into planet Earth. Following a series of analyses, researchers determined that a mysterious black pebble discovered years ago in the Egyptian desert is actually a piece of a comet nucleus, and it's the first of its kind to be discovered. It's been named Hypatia in honor of the ancient female mathematician, astronomer and philosopher Hypatia of Alexandria, and it's also studded with diamonds, which scientists say makes sense considering its cometary origin. The impact is calculated to have occurred about 28 million years ago in present-day Egypt. Time for a short break. Here's what's coming up in business.